All right, should we get going? Right? Yeah. Hi, everybody. Thank you all for coming out to this, I guess I'll call it a town hall, open meeting. It's not a noticed public meeting, so it's not an official meeting of the City of Summit. That's why there's only 3 of us here. If we had 4, we wouldn't be able to talk because it'd have to be noticed and all that good stuff. So we wanted to make sure we had an environment where we could engage with your guys' comments and things like that. So for you, those of you who don't know, my name is Mike McTiernan. I am the Common Council President at the moment. I've got 2 councilmen here as well, Councilman Boyer and Councilman Pulowski. We have the head of the Department of Community Programs, Mark Azarowski, and David Guida, who does a lot of the youth sports engagement with our young people in town. So hopefully we'll have enough people here who can answer your questions and concerns. Hopefully everyone saw that there is I guess a laid out of a proposal on usage for lights, and I think we did speak about wanting to make sure there was community engagement around this process to get input, and that's why we're here. So we want to make sure that that you guys can have a more open forum to be able to give comments outside of sort of the constrained environment of a council meeting where you're limited to 3 minutes and can't speak more than once. So that's why we're doing this. I would say we're probably here more to listen to what your concerns are than to lecture. That's not what we want to do. We want to hear what you guys have to say. So we'll do that. And again, I think because we are having this recorded, right? Or is it being streamed?
I think it's both.
It's both. So I would ask that if you do want to speak, you don't have to come up to the podium. You can come up to one of the tables, but you should use the microphone because people at home would like to hear what you have to say as well. Okay? So the way it'll work is I'll be here through, I've scheduled this for till 8:30. I'll be here the whole time. I think Councilman Boyer you're going to rotate out in a half hour? 7:30, and then Councilwoman Kalmelson will join us for the remainder of the evening. Okay, sound good? All right. So, if anyone would like to lead us off, if you comments on the proposals, like to talk about it, or have questions, please feel free.
Yeah, and just to add, like I said in the background notes, if you guys read what we posted, we didn't just pull all this stuff out of thin air. We have had a lot of meetings. There's been a lot of talk about this over the years, Q&As with the Department of Community Programs, emails from residents. We have the minutes of all the meetings that we had are posted, and we really took a close look through everything and tried to comprehensively put together some parameters that we think address what's needed by the community to get the most out of the lights and balance that against the comments that we got from the neighborhood. So, and then we wanted to publish this again so that it wouldn't just be, an introduction where you can't really comment on it, and then we have a hearing and people come in and you can't really make any changes. So that's why we're having this special town hall. We can take additional feedback. This isn't set in stone or anything like that, and we can tweak it as we feel necessary based on the additional comments that we get here tonight before we put it before the council.
All right, Mr. Bassman, never shy. I love it.
Yes, you're right. You know me. Okay, so my name's Henry Bassman. I live at 18 Hartley Road. Y'all have a choice to satisfy, well, you've satisfied one group of people And there's another group of people, the people who live around the community, who you have an opportunity to help ameliorate their concerns. From what I've seen,
Excuse me, Henry, could you just lift the mic up so that you can?
I did, okay.
Perfect, thank you, sir.
From what I've seen, it appears to me that the only concession that's been made from the original proposal is that when there's a game or when there's an activity, the lights go off at 9:45 instead of at 10 p.m. And that's not much of a concession. I would suggest that you listen carefully to the suggestions people have and try and make this less intrusive to the people who live near the Tatlock fields. Now, I have 3 specific suggestions. First, the volume of the loudspeakers. When I take off my hearing aids and I close the windows of my house, I can barely hear the public address system. But if I have my hearing aids in and I'm outside or I have the windows open, I can hear what's going on. And the loudspeaker is particularly intrusive. And I would suggest to you that you put a limiter on the volume so that it's less intrusive and that so that you can still hear what's going on. I've attended the last 2 games. I wasn't able to attend games as much frequently as I want because of the Vets for Warriors work I do. But since I've been injured, I haven't been doing that, and so I was able to attend the last 2 games. I was pleased to see how our team turned out. But also when you're in the stadium, it's quite loud, and it doesn't reach the danger level for hearing for young people, but it's pretty close. And you might want to think about installing loudspeakers on the visitor's side so that the loudspeakers on the home side don't have to be that loud to carry across.
And they point the other direction, too.
Say again?
And they point the other direction as well.
Yeah. The other thing is, I don't think the lights should be on until 9:45. I think that's too late. There are people with children, and also the young people who are exercising there. I mean, a game is a different situation, but for the practices, I think it's too late for those young people to be out, because if they leave the field at 9:30 and they get home at 10 and then they shower, they don't get to bed till 10:30, maybe 11, and then they got to get up and be at school early the next morning. That's not good. I would think that 8:30 is a much better turnoff time. The third thing is, some trees were installed in the open area between the woods. Those trees are far too small to do anything to shield from the lights. And the kind of trees they are slow growing. Those are not suitable. There should be larger trees, faster growing trees. And faster growing trees have a shorter life expectancy, it's true, but you can put faster growing trees, larger trees, and in the middle you can put the slower growing trees so that when the faster growing trees reach their life expectancy, they come down and the other trees remain. Those were the 3 suggestions that I would make. But I really implore you, both the community programs people and the council people, be a little more flexible. This is not as flexible as I think it should be. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Henry.
Council President, can I just make a quick statement?
Yeah, absolutely. He's here to talk.
Mr. Bassman, actually, that was phenomenal what you just did, because it reminds me of the park line where the whole entire neighborhood was up in arms about the park line, right? And then it became a point where, it's like, well, the park line is going to go up, right? But let's make it something that you like, right? And then the whole community came together and they started helping with the design of it, right? And what you just did, I appreciate that. And I hope to hear more of that because the mechanisms surrounding the lights, right? Like Councilman Pulaski said, they're not set in stone. And I think as a community, we could all, come together and do something, suitable. But so thank you. I hope the rest of the night goes like that.
Hello, Barbara Fevelo, 61 Way Drive. A couple of things. I heard what you said in terms of making it work for everyone. But when I read what was posted, it really did not take into consideration the many conversations that we had in terms of limiting the number of nights, the time frame. It seems to be growing as the project continues. So it went from a Friday night lights to now posting that we now want lights, leagues to be on every Saturday. That is not, so in order for this to work, I need to be able to feel like I've been heard. And all the conversations that were had prior to this evening and prior to this posting was not it was not considered because it's still very weighted to loading up the schedule at Tatlock. To me, the light should be out at 8 o'clock. 15 minutes for the people to leave. So 9:30, 10 o'clock is just completely unacceptable. I say 8 o'clock. And I say 8 o'clock because of children in the neighborhood who go to bed. So that was very clear all along that if there was going to be lights, it was going to be limited to like a Friday night light situation or a early evening turnout. And that is not what is happening with the schedule that was posted. So for all the conversations that we had, where is all that information and the clear recommendations from the community? It's not there. So in order for it to work for everybody, you need to have that as a baseline instead of loading up a schedule. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Matthew Fonzo, 12 Washington Avenue. Just to answer about the Saturday night thing, that's one thing that I proposed for youth football. So if that's what you're talking about, that wouldn't be every Saturday night. Maybe 2 Saturday nights a season we would try and do. Not, we have 4 home games, so we'd do 2 or 3 on Sunday, maybe 1 on Saturday and 2 on Saturday if we could. And that's just an idea. That's it. Thank you.
Coach, could I ask you a quick question?
Of course.
Only because my daughter plays flag football, right?
Yes.
And I know going to New Providence,
Yes.
I pick her up late sometimes. How late does the practices go? Do they go, because probably the plan would be for
8
them to-
o'clock.
8 o'clock?
8 o'clock we finish.
Okay.
Same thing we do for youth football here. 8 o'clock is the latest we finish. Nobody practices past 8. New Providence or here.
So then I have questions about Katie Isakovich, 51 Butler Parkway. I have questions about the parameters then. So
Or just speak into the microphone. Thanks.
So I'm hearing that there's no practice currently past 8 p.m., but we've created parameters that listen to the residents, but the parameters say 365 days a year up to like 9:30 p.m. or 9:45 p.m. And then on top of that, we were told this was primarily for practices and it allows for up to 14 games a year. So I guess I'm confused. How did the parameters take our concerns into account? Like, can somebody speak to that? We do have questions as well. That's my question. One of them. Another is, I guess, what is we're talking so much about ordinances, and I'm concerned because there's currently an ordinance and it doesn't have any teeth and it's not being followed. This whole thing is to not follow the ordinance. So we're going to make an ordinance, and that's going to be the thing that we point to. But what happens inevitably when there's a desire to violate that as well? Like, there's no teeth, right? Like, we don't get anything for it. So I'd love to, like, I know you guys said we could ask some questions. So, like, these are my questions. It's like, how did the parameters take the residents' concerns into account? Like, where can we actually see that in the parameters that were presented? And then my next question is, what is the value of an ordinance given that we are here because we're not respecting an ordinance that was literally created for Tatlock when the fields were turfed? That's where that ordinance came from. So I'm confused.
So the second part of your question is, we do respect ordinances. Ordinances are on the books, and they should be enforced. So if they're there and someone's violating an ordinance, you talk to council people, we talk to DPW, we talk to the police, and we uphold our ordinances. But that's not to say ordinances can't be changed, and there's a process for changing ordinances. So this ordinance that we're talking about doesn't exist yet.
Okay.
It's being considered, and to create an ordinance, you have to have 4 out of 7 people on council vote for it. But ordinances change. They can be replaced. That doesn't mean that you're ignoring an ordinance. You're making a change. So the wording, I'm not quite sure. Maybe we're on a different page, but they can be replaced.
Okay.
Absolutely. An existing ordinance, if there's a violation, of course, we want to uphold the ordinances on our books. But I'm not quite sure if that's what you're implying, that there's something that's being violated right now.
The ordinance does not allow for lights over 15 feet currently. For lighting over 15 feet, specifically calls out sports complexes. So I think we all know there's a number of places around town where that is not being respected. If we're talking about replacing it, okay, that's one thing. But like, I guess if they're so easily replaceable, it doesn't change the fact that that doesn't speak to how we should gain comfort. Like, the community made a compromise when the fields were turfed under the basis of an ordinance. So now we're told to make another compromise under the basis of an ordinance, yet we are talking about replacing the ordinance that represented the original compromise.
You know, I get that things do change. That the lights or the turf, Tatlock was turf 2004. Is that right? 21 years ago. For some people that might be yesterday. Some people that might be a long, long time. But things do change. Our demographics have changed in town. The number of youth sports has changed in town, and it's difficult to say that an ordinance that got passed and that a new council hands are tied because they can never make changes. No council has ever sat there and not been able to respond to changes in the community. They happen. So, right. But to your point, I wouldn't expect the way I would think about this is everything in the rules going to be perfect? Probably not. So I would expect there could be tweaks that this is not working, or, you know, say there's a suggestion from Henry and we dial down the loudspeakers and you have concerns that people can't hear them. So maybe we have to change an ordinance, say we put that in. All right, maybe we have to turn it up a little bit. I don't know. I'm just talking about throwing stuff out. Things need to be able to be adapted, you know, given feedback as things happen. So, and I hope that that's the case. You want to hear and listen and change when the change makes sense.
How have the other fields changed compared to Tatlock in the 20 years?
I'm not a field expert, so.
I can speak to that.
So.
I can answer that question. It's just a perspective. I'm Hal Dillon, 269 Ashland. The narrative that all practices end at 8 is actually wrong. it has evolved to 9:30 in other fields with lights. So that is what we have at Glenside and at the high school. So that is the time period, to the point, and I can explain why, at least from a lacrosse perspective. It's in the spring. It is until it starts being light longer. So we're not talking about that many months out of the year, in my opinion, from a lacrosse perspective. We have approximately 170 volunteer coaches, men and women, and those volunteer coaches, most of them work. And the reason we go till 9:30 is we run a practice from 6:30 to 8 and 8 to 9:30. To the question of, and we run that later practice for the older kids. Obviously, we're not having little kids practicing that late. So that's just the rationale on the time frame. I'm not, but that's why we do it, so that our coaches can get home from work at 6, get ready for practice at 6:30, and then we run 2 practices back to back. So that's why 9:30 exists. We are very, very good at, if we're not using the field, we let the rec department know if we're not using the field, so the lights go off. So the lights are not on, and I can speak about the high school in Glenside because that's where we have lights. They're not on every night. They're only on when we need them. And like I said, if we don't need them that late, we don't go that late. Our preference is always, to some of the points we heard earlier, if we can go earlier, we will. But we really can't start a practice before 6:30 based on the volunteerism that supports, our club. But it's very similar for the other youth clubs in town. We're very, I don't know if you guys know how many coaches we have in town. You may from the Rutgers safety course perspective, but they are volunteers, and most of them, the moms and dads work. So that's why we start practice time.
When does lacrosse season start and end?
Can I respond to that, please? I can understand why the lights are on till 9.
I just-
Henry, come up. He was just trying to add some context.
Can you just tell me? Can you just tell me when the lacrosse season starts?
The lights are on till 9:30.
Wait, I'm
Hold
sorry,
on
Mr.
one second.
Bassman. I had asked a question.
Nobody lives around Glenside.
Mr. Bassman,
Henry,
I had asked
he
a
just
question
had one quick
before.
question.
I know, he was
Can
asking me
you-
a question.
Can you tell me when the lacrosse season starts and ends?
No, Henry, stay.
Okay.
I'll just talk about it.
I made my point.
Well, there's lights at the high school too. They're going on until 9:30. Lacrosse season starts the end of last weekend in February, first weekend in March. So we start practice. Gameplay runs the last weekend of March till Memorial Day. It's really to the weekend before Memorial Day. So it's about we run games April and like this year, 3 weeks into May. So actually this year we have a short season because Memorial Day is early.
And what you're saying is that the schedule that's proposed, this is the same schedule as the upper high school fields for lights?
It's the same schedule we've used for the last 10 years on every field that has lights.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully that helped. I hope that helps.
Council President, just one comment, because I know that there are members of the community here who might have the perspective of the Summit Soccer Club. There's an important distinction between the rec sports and the Summit Soccer Club, because people say, well, the Summit Soccer Club they hire coaches. All of our coaches, and that drives the affordability of all the programs down, is having volunteer coaches. So there is just an important distinction between the Summit Soccer Club and all of the sports organizations in town.
Price is a third. Basically.
So the 365, why is it at 365 in the parameters?
It's not. It doesn't say that. What it says is that, there's different sports that are going to be using these fields. It's the rec sports, lacrosse, football, for the most part, at Tatlock anyway. Field hockey, and
Flag football.
flag football. for the girls and for the boys. So, when those sports aren't in season, they're not going to be practicing at night.
That's not completely true, Bob.
Which part?
The in-season part. I mean, there's fall and spring
Yeah,
seasons. So
right.
You probably need to define the seasons.
No, I think that's true, and that's one of the reasons why our fields are bursting at the seams. In my perspective as a parent, and I don't have kids at the youth sport level anymore, I must say I wasn't particularly happy about it. Sports never end. There's fall and there's spring, and they go all the time. So it's hard to determine. Baseball, they play 12 months a year. I don't know how they do it, but they do it. So I'm just looking through this. I'm not quite sure where this 365 thing is, but in any event, continue.
So then, okay, so now we're back at saying that it's going to be till 9:30. I'm confused about where we are here, and then I'm also confused about, like, I asked a question about the other fields and what has happened with them. Like we're making change it because it kind of feels like Tatlock is carrying all of the sports here. We're double turfed, and now we're going to be lit. And I haven't heard anything about parking. Like, is the idea that our streets will hold 90% of the parking as they do currently during the day? Like, what's the plan? How will the event space accommodate the event? Or will the expectation be our residential streets continue to be the accommodation for these now 14 events a year?
So what I understand is that the parameters for lights are no different than the parameters for lights at the high school neighborhood. They're the same. So they're not different. They're the same.
So is the high school in violation of the current ordinance?
For their lights,
Yeah, it's over 15 feet tall.
I feel that's Board of Ed property, but the lighting program is when they're on and off is the same.
So when you say you heard the residents' concerns and that's demonstrated in the parameters, but then I'm hearing that the parameters are just based on whatever was put in place for the high school, can you see that I'm not seeing how, just reading the parameters, I don't see how our concerns were in there, reflected in there, and then hearing that actually they were just built off of what the parameters were for the high school.
Nobody said that.
Nobody said what part.
Nobody said that they were just built on what the parameters for the
That's
high
what I
school are.
just heard.
No, you asked me what's been going on in other fields, and I said they have
To make
lights
them-
on the other fields that go off at 9:30.
If there's nothing scheduled in a particular night, then the lights aren't going to be on.
And
Okay,
that's, I
so
think, true at the
that's-
high school as well.
That's one thing.
Hi, I'm Barbara again, and I want to be respectful to everybody, but the lights are on and there's nobody on the field, because I drive by it all the time.
I heard it's 365 days a year.
So I want to be respectful to what you said, because I believe you believe it, but I'll let you know, as someone who drives by in preparation for this evening, the lights are on and the fields are empty.
So-
And there's tiny tots on the field at 9 o'clock, just so you know. There are young kids on the field at 9 o'clock, but sometimes it's, I would say, every other time the field is empty.
You'd have to ask the Board of Ed about that. I know sometimes they do leave the lights on so that there could be open play. That's not a part of what we're talking about here.
But respectfully, how, so when having the lights on, saying that practices go to 9:30, the neighborhood's clear request was to be off at 8, no lights, and then if there had to be lights, 8 o'clock. So being that this is a listening section, please write down, 8 o'clock is the number. It's not 9, it's not 9:30. And going back to the.
Wait, let's, hold on. Let's not have a back and forth, because that's not respectful either. Let's let people talk. If you would like to come up, we can have that conversation.
And so the time is a very big concern of the neighborhood, number one. and the parking conversation, there's still not a solve and not a plan to say, okay, we will direct everybody to the high school parking lots to park. People are not allowed to populate the streets the way they've been populating. And the police signs go up on one side, but it's still very intrusive with the buses. There's got to be a comprehensive plan that the buses drop the kids off at the high school and the families leave their kids there, and a safe way for them to walk to the field. But dropping off and polluting the streets is not an option. And that's what we've been saying from day one, that parking is an issue and a temporary sign is not solving the problem. So these are the concerns that we've been saying for the past year that have not been addressed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maggie Bauman, 40 Lewis Ave. Councilman Pulaski, you canceled the Neighborhood Tatlock Committee at the advice of the city solicitor, and I'm wondering what changed that could allow for this meeting to happen if the small community meeting could not with the committee.
Because we're only talking about what the parameters would be for the light usage here.
Okay, and so what, out of
In the Tatlock committee, we talked about things like parking strategies, and I think you'd have to admit it's gotten better in the past year. Well, I've gotten emails from people. Michelle Kalmanson, who's waiting outside, has told me that it's gotten better. So, that's something that we work on in the safety committee. The Tatlock committee was created to make recommendations that would go to those other committees. But we talk about a whole bunch of other things in there. Tonight, we're just talking about the usage, right? When, under what circumstances are the lights going to be on?
Okay, understood. Second point, is there any kind of master site plan that shows any pathway lighting that will be added, any parking, any trees that'll be taken out? Is there any, I do project management sometimes, and I start with my big plan, and then I work on the details. I feel like we're working on these details where there's so much big plan that's not being paid attention to.
Yeah, all that will happen, and we've been having discussions about that along the way.
With whom?
I beg your pardon?
With whom?
Well, we've...
Okay, well, here's the thing. So I was part of the, I'm not even paying attention back there. I was around way back when the second turf field was added at Washington. And the plan, like this one, was horrific. It was terrible. And the community got involved, and council listened, the rec department listened, and we ended up with a pretty good plan down there, and I'm optimistic by nature, and let's see, we'll get a good plan, it'll work. But I have to call BS here, because this is the exact same plan that the initial plan was. There's no input from neighbors involved in this. It's purely what lacrosse, football, soccer, every other sports, what they want. You need to think about the neighbors before you approve any lighting plan. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hello, my name's Robert Lee, and I live on 9 Pearl Street. My personal opinion as a parent is that I'm extremely happy when kids are out on the field, even if it's 9 o'clock at night. That means they're not on screens, they're not involved in drugs, they're not missing out on other things, then they're doing something communal with other friends. That said, my concern, or what I prepared for tonight, is more about the general perspective and not so much about specific details. I haven't seen the council proposal. I just saw the trust proposal that was posted on Facebook, and my concerns with that is, I understand that lighting at Tatlock requires a set of rules that prioritizes the safety of our community as well as the needs of our children. While well-intended, the trust proposal prioritizes minimizing disruption for the neighborhood residents and in doing so fundamentally misses the mark and deprives Summit's youth of crucial opportunities for growth and success. Sports are more than just games. They're lifelines that guide our youth towards positive choices and foster community. The current proposal emphasizes limiting use, the trust proposal, prioritizing local residents' desires over our children's developmental needs. This short-sightedness leaves kids in the dark, both literally and metaphorically. The proposal's strict regulations may seem sensible, but they ignore the vibrant benefits of a lively community space. When we all too narrowly restrict and confine, in my opinion, we limit children's potential to grow, learn, connect, and be part of something bigger. We restrict and confine opportunities for joy and community spirit. These rules should serve our entire community and not just the convenience of a select few. Each moment our youth are sidelined due to fading daylight jeopardizes our children's futures. Consider the impacts. A children's involvement in sports can transform their life trajectory. Our commitment to lights will foster healthier choices, better mental health, stronger community ties, and countless moments of joy. The proposal suggests a binding contract between the city and the neighborhood, which may appease some but lacks the flexibility needed to adapt to our community's evolving needs. As our community evolves, we must remain responsive and not locked into outdated agreements that serve only a vocal minority. Furthermore, the idea of regulating, reporting, oversight, and fees, and while well-intentioned, risks overlooking the real issues at play. Adding bureaucratic layers, we need committed action that promotes engagement of our kids. Creating unduly burdensome hurdles only stifles joyous gatherings and community spirit, in my opinion. Community events like night games, unite and strengthen our neighborhood while uplifting our youth. Let's not allow concerns about noise to overshadow the essential benefits these events provide. It may be tempting to try to legislate tranquility, but I urge you instead to focus on how we serve our youth and bring cheers of joy to our public spaces. Let's approach this issue with Summit's children's best interests in mind. Let there be light, not just in the field, but also in the future of our community. Together, let's uplift a young generation, ensure that they have every opportunity to shine.
Thank you for your comments. Councilwoman, wait, no, Councilwoman Connelson, you got a seat up here.
Tom Zieber, 768 Springfield Avenue. I just have a couple of questions and I guess just thoughts. I'll just give you all of them, I guess. So I guess this is a question, but the problem that I've had with this conversation for a while is that it seems like some of the reasons that are commonly cited as issues with the lights, either whether they exist or when they are used, at least the way I understand it, some of them seem at worst disingenuous and at best maybe just like there's a factual misunderstanding about some of it, because I thought, and I'm just citing some of the things I've heard over time, I've heard that the lights themselves will be intrusive into people's homes, which I've always interpreted to mean like it's going to shine into their windows and into their houses. My understanding is that current like 2025 light technology is not really like that. And so I'm not sure like the details of the lights that are going to be bought or anything like that, but my general understanding of the quality of these lights in this moment is that they are usually easier to confine to the space they're meant to light. You know, the argument, I think at one point, I know this doesn't come up tonight, but there was at one point concerns expressed about property values, and I never understood that either, because I think property values normally go up when school facilities are better. And then, you know, noise has been something else that's been talked about too. And, you know, I guess, I mean, I live on a main road in town. And, you know, for me to say, well, there's cars making noise at every hour of the day, I mean, I chose to live on that main road. And so I think that's still within reason. Like, I'm not saying it's unreasonable for a resident to say we don't want excessive noise, but it's not unusual for a sports event to take place until 9:30 at night. Like, that's not unreasonable. If the game was taking place at midnight, that would be different. So I guess I'm just trying to understand whether, I guess at least with the way the lights shine into, into or not into someone's home, like, is that even actually accurate? Will that concern will it turn out to be true that their lights are doing that? I don't know that you have that information at this point, but, also someone brought up the fact that, kids get home at a particular hour and then they shower and then they go to bed and they go to school. I mean, I just, this is an opinion, I guess. I don't think the city government should be making any decision on anything based on when they believe residents' kids should go to sleep. That's like a choice that parents make. So I don't know. I'm just not sure I follow that line of thinking. And, I guess the last thing is more of a statement, too. It's just some people have talked about compromises on this topic. And I've always felt, as I've observed this for a couple of years, that the only compromises that ever would have been enough would have either been no lights or lights that were so ridiculously minimally used that they were like effectively no lights. So I don't know, I guess some statements, but I guess the main question was whether the perception of the technology is actually accurate. Thank you.
So Musco, who is the company that we contracted, they've made some presentations, and these lights that are going to be put up, I guess they measure the lumens in candle light, foot candles. So they say that with no obstructions between the lights and the residences, that at the curb on Butler Parkway, it'll be 0.0 foot candles. So that and what that means is that anybody who's sitting in their living room or their family room watching TV is not going to see lights shining in. If you look out your window, will you see that the field's lit? Yes. But in terms of lights shining into people's homes, that's not going to be the case.
Hi, it's Barbara Fevelo again. I think everybody in this room should take a ride around the high school and look at the residences and how the lights shine not only in their homes. When people have their blinds drawn, you can look right through, I can see right through, and I could see the light, it looks like the living room light is on. So it's bright. So I hear what you're saying, but I think we should look at the evidence at the high school with the lights that were just installed. If you go the total border around the high school, it's very bright, and there is a glow over the high school, like a city, is a complete city. When you're looking from afar, you can see a dome. So everyone here, so it's a very real concern of what it does. I hear what you're saying, stop at the curb, but I am sorry, but I just don't believe it when the high school has just been installed and those people have their lights on.
When was the high school installed?
I mean, they're at least 10 years old.
Yeah, my understanding is that's a completely different technology. I agree with you, those lights at the high school are bright, but that's an apples to orange comparison. They're not the same at all. So that would not be the right comparison to make. You'd have to go to a neighboring community and look at the lights that are the same technology to actually make that comparison.
The closest we have in town is the Tatlock tennis court lights.
Oh, did you ever see the houses that border that?
They were put in 2016.
Okay, so I
10
suggest that you go on the street then, and they're also lit
I
up.
was just saying as a comparison.
Yeah, I did, and we do go around to different surrounding towns. I think the confidence level and the trust is missing because of what has transpired over the past year or two on this issue. So there's not a lot of trust that statement is true because of how this all came about. But if you take a look at the tennis lights, yes, I did. It's pretty bright for those homeowners. They're totally lit up inside their homes. Thank you.
Mimi Zukov, 49 Wave Drive. And by the way, I live 3 blocks away from that field. I live 3 blocks away from that field, and the noise that comes over those loudspeakers and the music is disturbing. I can be in my house with the windows closed, and I can hear every lyric. So, just saying. And I plan to call the police every time my peace is disturbed from this nonsense. Honestly, I didn't even want to come tonight. Why? Because to me, this is an utter exercise in futility. I have attended no fewer than 5 listening sessions, quite a number of council meetings, and I've written at least 3 letters to council over the past 2 years on the subject of Tatlock lights. And it was clear to me from the outset that no matter what anyone said, this council was going to push this through and impose the will of the sports community on my friends and neighbors. I've been told, as somebody just said, well, you live near the field. Well, when I moved to Summit 40 years ago, I moved in the winter. I really didn't know there was a field there. The realtor didn't drive us through that way. I was new to town. Imagine my surprise the first spring when I heard loudspeakers in my backyard, 3 blocks away. I didn't know where it was coming from, so I walked and I followed the sound. And that's how I found the football field. There was a big track meet that day. Back then, the only disturbance was from that one track meet in the spring and maybe 5 football games in the fall. There were cars all over the neighborhood, there was litter, there was traffic, but we put up with it in the spirit of being good citizens. Then there were the one Friday night a year Friday night lights game. Okay, but if you saw the number of liquor bottles I'd be picking up on the street the next day and in the woods and in the river. So now we're gonna have it 14 times at night during the school year. But we accepted that, and we shrugged because it was fun for the kids. Then came the turfing of the football field, then Upper Tatlock, and then our neighborhood filled up with cars more frequently, and noise disturbances from the loudspeakers became much more frequent. But now, the lights. These parameters, they're ludicrous. There's no consideration of any of our concerns in those parameters. And no, it doesn't specifically say 365 days a year, but it doesn't say that it's limited either. There is no limitation in those parameters whatsoever, not for one single day of the year, so I don't believe any of it. And you tell us to trust you, I do not trust you. I do not trust the Department of Community Services, and I certainly don't trust that our needs as citizens of this town are not being trampled on. Everyone in this town should share this burden, but it's not shared evenly. It truly isn't. And at least at the high school, there's parking. This process has been lacking in civility, respect, and consideration. Only 35% of this town has kids playing sports. That is not a majority. I am tired of being bullied by the sports lobby. You should be ashamed of your behavior, forcing your ideas on us. We deserve to have peace and quiet just as much as anyone else does in this town. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comments.
I just have a couple comments. I think the noise and the foot traffic, the number of home games is not going to, at least somebody check me on this. I don't believe the number of home games for football and lacrosse is going to change based on lights. Those schedules are set year over year. They're similar. I think football has 4 or 5.
For youth, we have 4. We won't get a playoff game.
But those are youth. Well, I'm talking like at the height.
First year will be 5,
Yeah.
probably, and the only time it changes if it's playoff.
State playoff, yeah. So I guess my point on that is I don't, and I hear what everybody's saying about the noise, and I liked the suggestion at the beginning on metering the noise and adding speakers, which I think would help with the noise. But just taking a gigantic step back, and I'm from the youth sports perspective, and had kids go through the high school.
Just speak into the microphone, please.
The lights we use the majority of the time are for practice. and they're for youth practices, where you've got a team on the field at a time. If you've got 2 fields, you've got 2 teams. The parking at Tatlock for practice for 2 teams going is the same at 10 a.m. as it is at 8:30 or 8 o'clock at night. It's the same. So I think parking from a practice perspective, which I still believe fundamentally is where these fields will get used. The high school programs go right after school. The high school games are either after school, and most of them are during the day. That's probably not going to change. What I'm struggling with, just hearing some of the sentiment is, and David talked about it, we're talking about rec sports. We're not talking about club sports. We're talking about supporting rec sports. We're fortunate, whether you think you're being bullied by the sports community or not, we're fortunate to have a strong sports program in this town. Because we have a strong sports programs in this town, we have amazing student athletes. If you want to look at who's going to the Ivies out of Summit, most of them are athletes. If you don't think that's pulling up our academics, you should take a look at that. So I think this is I think what's getting lost in the wash here is this is going to be predominantly used by youth sports. The number of home games is not changing. The noise is going to be what it was already. I don't follow that argument. I don't follow that line of thinking. And I talked about how many, I want to say, how many volunteer coaches do we have in town? Off the top of your head, Rutgers safety course.
Football, at least 60, over 250, 300.
We got 170 in lacrosse. What do you have in baseball? How many coaches? How many? 50 to 100. So the reason we need to, and I'm just repeating myself, but I think it's worth repeating. The reason we're asking for a little leeway is for youth practices, because we're a volunteer-led community supporting youth sports. I mean, I can tell you this, and I've been on the phone all week fighting against these private clubs that are charging families $5,000 when we're offering lacrosse in the spring for $300 to $400, right? That's 10x cheaper because we're rec programs. We have that across the board in Summit, and what we're asking the council to do is support that. Do we need to compromise on things like noise and pay attention to parking? Summit Lacrosse Club, if we run a big day, we pay the police to come and make sure that the community is not impacted. We are incredibly thoughtful, and I think that's getting lost in the wash here. Jess Riley, who does our scheduling for lacrosse and does scheduling for field hockey, is on top of it every day. If we're not using a field, we let the rec department know. If we're not using a field that has lights, we ask them to turn them off. We do this all year, and I think that's getting lost. And I just think we need to remember that no one's trying to bully anyone here. We're just asking for a little more field space. We live in the community. The last thing we want to do is be a thorn in someone's side where we're too noisy or disrespectful or leaving trash, and we pound that in our athletes' heads to leave our fields better than they were when we got there, which is an incredible life lesson. So I just think we need to take a big step back and think about what we're really talking about. It's not 365 days a year because it's light half the year, and we don't need the lights. We're talking about the boys and girls that are playing football in the dark, which is a fact, and we're talking about, in the beginning of lacrosse season, kids that are playing in the dark. That's what we're trying to address. We're not building a stadium. We're just trying to support youth sports predominantly. So I think we need to remember that as we're going into this, and I really hope the Common Council looks at that. And I'm all for a dialogue. I would love to talk about what we can do around noise. We can use electronic whistles so that there is no noise pollution when it's late. There's things we can do, but we're not even talking about that because I feel like this is this all or nothing scenario, and we're not having a proper dialogue, in my opinion.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Zeber said something that I hope is not reflective of a general attitude. He used the word disingenuous to describe the people who are asking for modification to the kind of program that is outlined. Disingenuous is someone who is insincere, dishonest, or not candid, often giving a false appearance of being honest or innocent. I don't think anybody here, whether they're supporting longer use of the field or shorter use of the field, is disingenuous. And I just want to make sure that nobody gets that impression and that that is not the kind of attitude that's conveyed by the different opinions in this discussion.
Thank you.
I just want to respond to the gentleman who was talking about lacrosse.
You have to speak into the microphone, please.
So if it's really just for practice time, then let's forget about these night games. The practices do not disrupt the neighborhood in the way that 14 or more night games would.
PJ Angler at 16 High Street. So, a couple things. I agree with everything that Hal just said, and I think it would be more productive if we could focus back on the actual agenda here tonight.
Just speak into the
Focus on
microphone.
the terms and usage of these lights. I appreciate there's some concerns about the lights from the neighbors. I've heard only two now. A third suggestion was shut them off at 8. Another neighbor said 8:30, and now someone's proposed no high school games at all, which I wholeheartedly disagree with that. At night, yeah, that's sorry, yes, at night, sorry. I disagree with that wholeheartedly, and I'm not saying that we need to have all these games, but when you hear people talk about, Hank, disingenuous, all of the comments are about football. You say 14 games, but all the issues stem from the varsity football games. A soccer game at night isn't drawing that same crowd. A youth sports game isn't drawing the same crowd. It's never going to. So it's disingenuous to suggest that, one, it's going to be 365. Two, that all 14, 16, whatever games they are going to draw the same crowd and the same problems that the varsity football draws. There's only 4 or 5 home varsity football games. They exist, today, during the middle of the day. They might have 1 or 2 at night. That's the only difference. To Hal's point earlier, it's all about practice, generally speaking. Not all 100%, but 98, 99%, it's about practice. So if there's concerns that you feel aren't being met or aren't being addressed in the proposal, well, what do you want differently? That's my ask. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just note, if somebody keeps saying 16 games or more. In terms of the varsity games, what we have in this draft set of parameters is 8 to 14. 1 to 2 for the boys football, 1 to 2 for boys lacrosse. And we also have to open it up to all the other field sports in those seasons, the boys and the girls. I don't know if they're going to want them. They might not. It might be nice to have senior day under the lights. That's why we put it in, and we put a range in. And like I said before, none of that's set in stone. Maybe when this is all over, they'll get 1 game each. But I just wanted to, Miles is shaking his head over there. Well, that is what it says, and that is what I'm saying.
No, that is what it says. I just think it's not what you promised.
Mr. Calmelson, if you want to speak, come up and use the mic. Okay.
Yeah, I agree with Hal's comments as well. I believe the big crowds are really for football. And I have to say, as a football parent, the joy that these kids get from being able to play their sport at a night game is incredible. And to say that that's not worth the noise at 4 or 5 home games, I don't know what it means to share the burden of the community. I live on the east side. I moved to Summit without knowing where I was moving. I live next to the hospital. We get at all hours, we have the ambulance coming in. We got a helicopter flying right over our house. We have the firing range where we have to listen to gunshots all day long. That doesn't compare to the joy of having kids cheer for each other and parents being out there supporting each other, the community coming together. I'm a Democrat. I know a lot of the Republican parents in the community. They support their kids. We come together and we have fun, and it's just there as a gathering place for us. And to want to deny that based on maybe 4 really crowded ones where we have football games, the lights, I've been to many, many football fields at night, and the new technology, it's literally, it goes from daylight to darkness within 5 or 10 feet. It's incredible, the lighting technology. So, and to have sounds up to 10 o'clock, my God, is that going to be so bad for our quality of life that we're arguing over something where we're talking about the mental health of kids? I was happy to be an assistant coach. I know very little about coaching football, but I was happy to be an assistant coach for one season when my son was in 8th grade. And I'm repeating myself because there were 2 kids that were really brilliant athletes. They weren't from the most well-to-do family. And we were standing around at 4:30. It's dark out there. Those 2 boys, they were good athletes. They were big kids. The next summer, I hear from my son, oh yeah, so-and-so is smoking pot now. He quit football, and the other kid as well. These are important mental health sports. And it gives people opportunities. It gives people community and like a spirit of belonging together and supporting each other. Like Hal said, he makes sure that they take care of the field afterwards when they leave there, so they don't leave all their mess around. And those are values and qualities that I think we all need to be more supportive of as a community. And like I said, I wish I didn't live near gunfire. I wish I didn't live near a helicopter flying literally over my house. But that's where I am. That's part of the burden that I carry. I'm not going to ask people to stop flying their injured people into the hospital or stop the police from training. That's part of the burden that we carry living in a city. And I think what Hal and I and some of the other parents are asking is that for maybe a few times out of the year, you guys carry a noise burden as well. I agree we need to figure out parking and traffic when it gets crazy, but again, it's only the big events, which is football, and they're not that many. It's only 4 home games in a regular season. And to not put up with 4 events in a year, come on, we got to do that for the kids, for other kids, for all the sports that benefit from this. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comments.
So we keep talking about kids, and I'm here because of kids. I have a baby and a toddler. Those are kids too. They also deserve to be able to sleep in the hours that they are supposed to sleep in. Like, I can get a pediatrician note that says that it would not be okay for them to be going to sleep at 10 p.m. however many nights a year, or 9:30, or whatever is decided upon here. So, like, everyone's talking about how this is so important for the kids. What about the kids who should be asleep at that time and live in homes that currently do not have this issue? We did not move here and have this issue. We're talking about creating it for families who have moved, like, before we make this change. So those are kids too. And I don't think that on the other side that a pediatrician would sign off on the times that we're talking about for kids to be going to sleep on school nights. So, like, I don't think it's the same. And I know, like we said, like, parents should decide what time their kids should go to sleep. Sure, absolutely. I'd like to be able to do that for my kids who are significantly younger, and I think other parents with significantly younger kids would like to be able to do that too. And like, council certainly should not be the ones who are limiting that, but it wouldn't be terrible to take like what's actually medically responsible into account here.
Thank you for your comments.
My name is Gerard Farrell. I live at 14 Pearl Street. I just have a question that was prompted by an earlier exchange between the gentleman here to my right and I believe Councilman Pulaski. There was a reference made to a promise. Specifically, I believe the exact wording was that was not what was promised. I would like to know from either or any of the members of council present tonight what specifically was promised, by whom, and to whom. Thank you.
Could you, Mr. Farrell, could you clarify the context of what said promise?
Yes, during the earlier discussion with the gentleman over here in the blue sweatshirt, between he and Councilman Pulaski, this gentleman made the comment, that's not what you promised the other night. So I would like to know what that promise is that was being referenced.
Miles, what did I promise the other night?
No. Sorry, I didn't want to get up here. I was going to sit quietly in the back. That's the look of disappointment right there. No, all along, this has always been about Friday Night Lights. It's been about practice, and it's been about Friday Night Lights. Everybody has always said, we want to have one Friday Night Lights game a year. And that's what's always been said. And now, now that the lights are actually going in, now that the contract's been signed, that number has really creeped up. That number is not one Friday Night Lights game. It's now 14 Friday Night Lights games. And I know everybody says they, well, it's up to
Wait. Let Mr. Guys, let Mr. Connelson speak, and if you want to come up, you can speak.
You're right. Friday Night Lights is, all right, the name Friday Night Lights, I won't say that, but there are 14 varsity games that can happen based off of the parameters that were in that contract. Does everybody agree that's
If that's what we decided.
yeah, 14, up to 14.
As long as you agree there's a difference between football and the other sports.
I do agree that, but I also say that we don't know what's going to happen when the soccer team and their family sees that they are getting the big stadium. They're getting the big field with the stands and all that other stuff. Like there are packed the stands nights for soccer, but those are much smaller. Like there's not as much. There's just not as much room. The best you could do is maybe a few hundred if you pack the stands in the high school. You can pack 4,000 people probably into Tatlock. I don't know if that's the right number. It's a wild estimate, but you can pack thousands of people into Tatlock. But
1,500 maybe?
Okay, all right. So anyway, but it is a bigger event. It makes it a bigger event. It's going to be a bigger event for the kids. It's going to be a bigger event for the families, and again, that may be a good thing. But 14 times a year is a lot. So that's all I'm saying, is that this is expanded from 1 or 2 night games a year to 14 night games a year, and that was what I was saying when I said that's not what was promised.
Yeah, look, I never promised anything except to, carefully think this through about what's best for the community as a whole. I think that's what we're doing here. Again, 1 to 2 football games.
Okay.
1 to 2 boys soccer, 1 to 2 girls soccer, 1 to 2 field hockey, if they want it.
Yep.
And that's, again, this is a draft. I tried to make that really clear when I published it and when I said it here, this is a draft. And the reason that we released this draft was to have this extra meeting that we're all at tonight, because this is what Kevin and I put together based on all of the feedback that we've gotten thus far and as to what's needed, wanted, and not wanted.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments.
Nick Curiel, 25 Grove Street. Since we took a
tour back in time. I remember 35 years ago, growing up here in town, God rest his soul, Gil Orn getting the upper Tatlock lights put up because of overcrowdedness with the sports community. I mean, now, years later, 35 years later, we have tripled, I don't know how many more we've increased with the population of the sports community. Being a former football coach with the youth, I could tell you firsthand, it was dangerous. It's still dangerous coaching those kids on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursday night. I forget the practice schedule, whatever it is. But
Speak into the microphone so people can hear you.
what I'm trying to say is, this is great that we're doing this with the extra lights down on the lower game field, just for the population of the sports and the safety. It's a community event. It's just all a community engagement, and it's great. And then to answer the question back there about children sleeping and stuff, I grew up on Morris Avenue, right by the hospital. So morning, noon, night, all hours of the night. We heard the ambulances coming by, and not once did the community say, hey, let's have a petition to tell the ambulance to turn their sirens off. And now, what's not right? What's not right? Wait, but now I live on the other side, the outskirts of town. When you enter the town, and I had children there, they slept all through the night, and you have ambulances coming in 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Let's talk up here and not make it a back and forth.
And then I got another question. With all these practices that go on at night with the youth football, has there been any complaints? Have the police been called? Has there been any noise or traffic issues? I remember when I was practicing as a kid in high school, and even when I was coaching, I never once saw a police officer come in and say, hey, there's traffic going on down here. I remember once, me and Coach DeFonso, we had to call the fire department because the lights weren't on, because that was a safety issue. But other than that, I'd like to know if, Councilwoman Kemlinson, if you could answer that. Is there a safety issue with the practices going on now currently where the police have been called in?
I don't, off the top of my head, I don't have the police records. I don't know of any police reports. I would need to consult
the
with
neighbors that are
Peters.
here tonight, has there been issues right now that's going on? During the week?
Parking in controlled intersections.
During the week, during practice, during the week?
Driveways, parking
During the week, Henry.
that are supposed to be no parking streets. That happens all the time. I even went, when they had the junior high school graduation, I even went and complained to the police that there was no control. People were parking on the grass in the parking area, which says no parking.
Henry,
Plenty of parking.
I'm asking practice during the week, not a one-offs like graduations.
I think my knowledge of this, and I may not have 100% of the facts, there have been complaints and issues with parking and such during large events. High school graduation. A couple of years ago, my son got a ticket for parking in front of somebody where he shouldn't have. The big track event that we have, and sometimes these football games.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, to your point around practices, I'm not aware of any activity that the police have been involved in around traffic violations or parking issues. I could be wrong, but I know that there have been for large events,
Mm-hmm.
but I do not know. My understanding is that does not happen at practices, and like I said,
And then-
I wouldn't stake my life on it, but I'm pretty sure I would have heard a few if they
And
were
then
happening.
Realistically, these lights would, the early month of December, that's it. And then we'll have the whole winter off until when in the spring are we thinking that they might go back on again?
I think that the lacrosse people here can tell me, I think lacrosse starts going in the first week of March, something like that?
We use lights, March to May.
Yeah.
Early May.
And then we use them in,
And fall would really need September to December.
So it's not 365 days a year then?
Because it's late, we don't need them.
Okay, thanks.
I just want to give a heads up to people. It's 8:15. So we're going to run this for another 15 minutes. So if you would like to comment and you haven't, use this opportunity, please. We want to hear what you have to say.
Peter Sabello, Greenfield Avenue. I'm not going to argue pro or con as far as how many games are going to be played at night. My question is, where are the controls for the lights? How are they being controlled? Are they being controlled remotely? And if not, who's going to have the control for those lights? If you've got 10 different teams using the fields at any given time or throughout the year, who's going to have that control to turn the lights on or off?
So I'll start on this, and
Mark, and you
I'll
can-
turn it over to these guys. On nights when practices are scheduled, it'll be automatic. It's on it's controlled by.
I've never spoken, I've never, sorry to interrupt you.
Jess, just use the mic. Sorry.
You can use the one here, Jess, at the table.
Sorry, I can help it, sorry. I've never spoken, I've never come to one of these meetings. I have volunteered my time for about 10 years now in terms of scheduling for fall and spring.
Ms. Riley, speak into the microphone.
Okay, so in terms of control, I don't know who will actually, and I've worked with all four of these guys too for however many years too. But in terms of the spring for fall, or for spring lacrosse, we really need it March, April, May, June, or not even June, March, April, May, period. We have the lights on at Glenside and Upper High School till 9:30. We don't use it every single night. I have worked with these guys and our AD, and I've listed out a weekly schedule. We don't use it every single night. So I actually say, Monday, turn off at 8:15. Tuesday, turn off at 8:45. Wednesday, we have 2 games to 9:30. That's it. We can do this with these guys in March or in fall and spring. It doesn't need to be on 365 days a year. It doesn't need to be on every single month. It doesn't need to be. These kids, our field hockey program is growing. I deal with these guys nonstop. We have 3, 5, 6 teams. We're going to have 2 7th, 8th grade teams. We're battling high school versus youth. Youth doesn't use speakers, okay? We don't use loudspeakers. There wouldn't be a noise issue, okay? The lights, it wouldn't bring the crowds. The youth doesn't even drive, so there's no cars. It's the parents that are picking up, so there's no parking issue with that. I just think that we can work with these guys. We can turn off the lights when we don't need them. We don't need them every single day. I promise you that. I've been doing it for 10 plus years. So I just think that it would be a huge advocate for these kids to be able to do it. The programs are growing. I have 2 athletes in college right now and 1 that's in 6th grade. It's a huge benefit to have these sports. And I schedule for this, and we need 2 slots because of the adults coaching and volunteering their time. 6:30, 8:30, 9:30. It's not used every single night. I promise you it's not used every single night because there's away games and they're at another town. So I am even volunteering my time again like I did with AD. I will give out a weekly schedule and I will say, I don't know who will control them in the fall, but in the spring it's the AD at the Upper High School. I don't know who will control Upper Tatlock or Investors. But it is remote. It is by remote. And it's a simple text. Hi, Allison, we don't need it today. Can you please shut it off at 8:15? And that's what we did in the spring. That's what I did with Dan Healy for the last 2 years. And I'm still doing it in the fall with Allison on the Upper High School for field hockey. So I think it's something that we can work together with. It can be a weekly schedule. It's not every single night. I schedule it, I promise you. But again, it's not a high school and a youth. It's just youth. Because high school.
For all sports or just your sport?
I've done field hockey and lacrosse. Girls and boys lacrosse and girls field hockey. And I've done it for 10 plus years. And I promise you, it's not every single night till 9:30. Practice on the boys' side at Glenside is Monday through Thursday till 9:30. And they need it. If they have a away game, they're done at 8. They don't need it till 9:30. But Glenside's a different animal because it's over there and wherever it is. But Upper High School and Investors and Upper Tatlock, it can be controlled and can be manually controlled every week. And it can be put out a week schedule. We're given the slot till 9:30 for a reason, because there's rainouts, there's rescheduling, there's a girls' team can't even play back-to-back right now because in April and May because we don't have the daylight. But daylight in the spring it goes and we get daylight to 8:15 and it's huge.
But when we have September, October, November, and December, when we're doubling up upper high school and we can't get 2 teams on there, I was up there till 8:15 with youth field hockey 5-6. The high school boys were coming on at 8 to 9:30. It was 2 nights, and that's it, and they don't need it. But if it would be beneficial if the girls could stay on there later, because we do have 3 5-6 teams. We do have 2 7th, 8th grade teams next year. It's huge. That program didn't exist when my older ones went through. It did not exist. And it's huge that they have the opportunity to have that sport. I played it. I played both my entire life through college. It's awesome for women and girls sports to be out there. It gives the opportunity for the boys. But when we're talking about the boys' high school side, they don't even, come on, if you talk to the high school coaches, they don't want night games because it keeps them in their schedule. They want afternoon games. It keeps all the boys and the girls, everyone right after. Maybe it's one, like you said, 1 Friday nights or 1 boys soccer, girls soccer, 1 field hockey. I would challenge the high school coaches if they want a night game. Maybe it's fun for 1, but they like to keep them in their regimented schedules and the kids in their regimented schedules. So it is all youth. It is not the high school guys and girls driving. It's the parents trying to get their kids. And just FYI, in terms of timing, I've coached since 1st grade through 8th grade, and my girls, again, are in college, and I still have a 6th grader. Summit School of Dance, which I battle in my own 6th grade, they're practicing at Summit School of Dance till 10 p.m. as 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. You think lacrosse till 9:30 is crazy for the older kids, which would be 6th, 7th, and 8th? I don't know. I mean, bedtime, again, it goes back to parents' decision, what they want to do. I think 10 p.m. dance studio, again, I'm not a dance person, but they're in that studio till 10 p.m. 10 p.m., that's crazy, as 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, okay? And then they're getting home, then they're showering, then they're going to bed, then they're homework. That's not lacrosse. We're done at 9:30 at the latest. And it's not a common thing having games till 9:30. It's just not.
Yeah,
It's not. Sorry.
Ms. Riley, thank you. I just want other people to be able to comment.
Jess, can I just add on to...
One of my questions. You indicate that you text somebody to turn off the lights, but then are you physically turning the lights on and off, or are you dialing into a system to turn those lights on and off?
Either dialing or calling Moscow, the company.
They control it?
It's done through an app, so it's all done on your phone.
It's on the phone or a phone call.
Okay.
And just to add on to the scheduling, I think something important to note is, yes, in the current proposal that was put out there, there are these times, but just as Matt with football pointed out, they're not looking at using it past 8 p.m. for the practices. So that's what we're really looking at for the fall predominantly. And then spring is just relayed. Like, it really is variable, and we will look at it night by night. So, and I think just hearing all the comments, we can put a parameter in at some point to say December 1st through March 15th or whatever day we decide that the lights won't be on. But I think hearing all the sports organizations, we don't want to get so granular that we box ourselves in, because what happens if there is a rain out or it's a super hot day and a team needs to get on there a little later? So we're really not looking at these regular things, but because we don't want to be out of compliance with whatever ordinance is put in place, it's important to have that wiggle room.
Okay, my questions were basically on the control of the lights, because originally the original proposal was they were going to be, 70 or 80 feet tall, and that was going to be the extent of the lights. And now there's an addition that there's going to be track lights. When did that come into play, and how much did that add to the budget?
That was always in the proposal.
Pardon?
That's always been in the plan.
No, it wasn't. The presentation by Moscow had nothing to do with track lights at 20 or 30 feet high.
18.
There was nothing there in that.
And
proposal.
actually, the proposal also had show lights in that was removed. So the proposal was pretty substantial. There was track lights from the beginning. There were show lights. The show lights were absolutely removed from it.
When he gave the presentation at the middle school, there was nothing about track lights.
Thank you for your comments.
Mary Jo Makuchi DeFonso, 12 Washington Avenue. This is not made for short people. So my husband's been coaching here for 26 years. My son was a Union County Scholar Athlete 2007. It baffles my mind that parents that are living in this area are willing to risk the safety of these kids because, oh, my house is worth $1.2 million. It's going to interfere with my peace and quiet. Are you kidding me? Come down to East Summit. You want peace and quiet. We don't have peace and quiet. We got routes 78 and 24 right there. That's traffic constantly. Ambulances constantly. You want peace and quiet? Invest in some Pella windows. And don't tell me that your child needs to nap because there's football games during the afternoon. What do they do in the afternoon when they have to nap? They don't nap then? They only go to sleep at 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night? Come on. I'm tired of hearing this conversation. I really am. Because all three of my kids were all athletes, every single one of them, 3-season athletes. And as I said, my son, Union County Scholar Athlete for 2007. We were at that field constantly. And when my husband stands up here and tells you, and he has invited every council member to come down there to see what he's talking about, and nobody showed up. So when you tell me that it's not dangerous, go down and see for yourself. I challenge you to go down and see for yourself because you need to see it to experience it. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Oh, and besides the fact that, we keep building and building. Now we're building a new development on Ashwood and Broad Street. We're building a development over here. Where are these kids supposed to play their sport? You want kids to participate. You want to keep them out of trouble. You don't want them drinking and doing drugs. We want them to participate in sports, but yet, no, we can't have lights because X, Y, and Z. There's only so much room in this town. We've built ourselves out. And you're getting to the point where you're turning kids away to play, and of course they're going to go do something else. We may have a Gil Oren out there. We may have a Willie Wilson out there, and we're not going to know that if we're prohibiting kids from playing. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I just want to address some of the fallacies here. So one is that if some people grew up in noisy conditions, then now all children should grow up in noisy conditions. I appreciate it. When I first arrived in this country, I was on food stamps. I don't want that for my kids. Can we not say that just because you grew up on Morris Avenue and it was loud there that now that's what's right for everybody? That's not really fair. That's one thing. And then another is that we're not trying to be against the sports team. We're not trying to stand in your way. We just like you to try other ways. Tatlock already has 2 turfed fields. Why are we not looking elsewhere in town to even the burden? We're looking only at Tatlock again. It has 2 turfed fields. That's kind of not fair. And everyone can decide when their kids go to sleep, absolutely, for sure. But I would also like to choose when my children go to sleep. And they're very young. They are supposed to be going to sleep earlier. And yes, it is true that we are already losing quite a bit of their naps for daytime games, and I have accepted that. And we are not you're right, there have not been complaints about the daytime events, but we are saying, hold on here. You have taken quite enough from us in terms of daytime. Let's stop it there. Now you're saying we see how, thank you so much for your daytime peace and quiet. We see you have so much nighttime peace and quiet. How much of that can we take? That's not really fair, especially when other fields have not been explored in terms of making them more dynamic, as the term has been used.
Thank you for your comment.
And I just want to follow up, David, when you said we haven't gotten granular. It's time to get granular. It is time. And I think that a lot of this can take on a different projection if you do get granular, and so people don't have to be in question, and there's a level of trust on all sides of this issue. It's time. And so when we talk about ordinances, it has to be reflected, and we have to have written agreements. And I think that, for the fact that We went from 1 to 14. You can argue it. It could be 21 if another new sport comes in. We have to have agreements. It's time to get granular, and you really need to spell it out completely for a master schedule. No lights, this is the timeout, this is the 3 months of no lights. Whatever it may be, it is time, because this discussion can go on and on and on. And we all want our kids to be successful. We all raise successful children. Yes, and we'll continue to do so. But it is time to put the paper and pencil together with a chart. And that's what needs to get posted. And not individual efforts from different teams. That's inclusive of all teams and put it forth. It's time. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm just going to ask, it's at 8:30. If someone hasn't had an opportunity to speak, I'd ask you to please come up and do that now. We're going to try and wrap this up, the next couple of speakers.
So the lights are happening, so that's we know it's happening. I heard about technology before and apps and stuff like that. Could it be noted that if the field is supposed to be lit for up until 9 o'clock because of a practice, but that practice ends at 8, the head coach that's on that field, could they have access to the app? So this way, once everyone leaves, or could there be noted, if they can't have access to the app?
We don't.
Well, let me just finish. Could they be told that they must call Musco, you, David, whomever, and those lights have to be shut off, once he's the last one to leave the parking lot? This way, the residents in the neighborhood say, hey, wait, the parking lot's empty, there isn't a practice, and these lights are still on.
Yes, but we don't want everybody and, 5 football coaches, 10 lacrosse, we don't want that. Because they're
It has to be
they're gonna
one
abuse the
master
system.
person that's there that,
We want the president of lacrosse, football, to give one of us a call.
okay, no, that's fine, I agree with that, but what I'm trying to say is to make it mandatory that whoever is that coach on that field, let's have the respect for the neighborhood. If the lights are going to be on, if it's on, they're scheduled for 9 o'clock, but practice, it's a rainout. I mean, come on, you're not going to, there's thunder, lightning, we got to get off the field. Somebody makes the call, and they get shut off.
Yep, that's what we do now.
Absolutely.
That's what we already do.
But I'm just saying, can we put that in the writing here, so this way the neighborhood understands that these are the conditions that are getting put in, okay? All right, thanks.
Jocelyn Modesto, 61 Butler Parkway. Okay, a lot has been talked about today. This wasn't quite what I expected. I thought this was going to be more of like a question and answer, more discussion situation. So I didn't prepare a statement. So I guess I'll just say what's on my mind for a little bit and then maybe throw out some of my questions that hopefully can get answered at some later time. Okay, so whether or not I believe lights belong at Tatlock, if you do proceed, which it sounds like that's going to happen, then the proposed parameters definitely need to be significantly revised in a number of areas. They need to be tightened up. They need to, as Katie said, have teeth. I don't see anything in here that talks about how these would be enforced. I get it that if they're broken, there's going to be a post-mortem, but okay, so then you guys talk about what happened and what's to stop it from happening again. I understand, Ms. Riley, thank you very much for explaining, your involvement with the field hockey and lacrosse, and I can appreciate that. But I think from the comments and personal experience, we've all driven by the high school, and those lights are on, even though nobody's on the field. So you can tell us all you want that if the field's not being used, the lights will be off. Experience has told us differently. As far as the track lights go, there was specifically something in the environmental analysis that Eco Sciences did that said, in the case of the lower Tatlock field, the lighting is focused on the playing field and generally excludes associated features, including the surrounding running track. So that kind of null and voids their analysis of foot candles and impact and all of that stuff. Because the lower the lights, the less control you have over where they shine. So with 83-foot lights, right, we were told you have a lot of control about where they go. 15 to 18-foot lights, not so much control. So I would just be curious to see how that affected the analysis, especially at the planning board meeting. There was no analysis of track lights discussed. Another thing about the track lights, has there been any sort of formal engagement to gauge interest in having lights on till 10 o'clock at night? I mean, I know everyone's saying it doesn't say explicitly 365 days, but the way this reads, it's Monday through Saturday, January through December. So I think that needs to be tightened up too, like who would actually be using the track until 10 o'clock at night during what months? And then follow it up by actually seeing who's using it. Let's see some other things. How are you planning to address the parking on residential streets late into the evening? Have you considered closing the lower entrance when it's just practices? This way parents are not idling outside of our houses until 9:45 at night. You don't hear their cars, the car doors shutting. And I know people say on their own streets they probably hear that too, but that's not every night with multiple cars. That's if someone has somebody over or someone's leaving their house. Different situation. Why was the planning board's recommendation of shutting off the lights at 9 p.m. not considered? What is the plan for youth games? There's noticeably no limit on them in the parameters. It would be helpful if you could produce what each sport's requests actually are, so we can see kind of what each sport is asking for. Was there a discussion about having the lights dim to practice light level when it's not a game? I know that is something that practice lights are not as bright as game lights. So I think with this technology, you should have the ability to dim them to practice light levels when it's not a game. Why wasn't there a study of noise levels ever conducted? What is an electronic whistle? I have no idea. I've never heard of it. How loud does an electronic whistle go? Is it almost as loud as a regular whistle? So that's something to consider. Just skimming through real quick, sorry. Okay, so you were made aware of the presence of state endangered, proposed federally endangered, and state threatened bats and birds in Martinsbrook Park. The endangered bat species are confirmed in the state biotics database. The ERI also considers Martinsbrook Park an important resource as wetlands and a thriving ecosystem. So what consideration was given to protect the endangered and special concern species located in Martinsbrook Park as requested by the Environmental Commission in their staff comments? Did you consider any of the many studies on health effects of artificial lights on humans as requested by the Environmental Commission in their staff comments? Can you please explain how the ancillary nighttime issues identified by the Community Programs Committee will be addressed, such as noise, trash, vandalism, and teen issues such as drinking? Did you ever consider a trial run of lights during a season with temporary lights? Why wasn't this pursued? This way you could see what the actual need and usage and effects would be on the neighborhood. What proposed solutions are being implemented from the traffic study? Will sidewalks be put on the side of the track? Because I believe that was one of the suggestions to avoid people walking in the middle of the street when it's dark. And I think that's it. I just want to close by saying that the neighborhood's frustration stems from the fact that 21 months ago we started this conversation, and 10 p.m. 365 was thrown out. And every time we repeated that, we got called liars, we got called fearmongerers, we got told that we were blowing it out of proportion. Councilman Smallwood even sat up there and said, if the end result is lights on till 10 o'clock at night, 365, he would vote no. Yet here we are, 9:45, possibility of 365 days a year. It's not significantly different.
So
Okay. Thank you for your comments.
I'm sure various people up here will answer some of those questions,
Now I have a
but
question.
a whole bunch of them go far beyond the scope of what we're here for tonight. So
Right. We're not here to relitigate whether the lights go in or not. Okay? That decision's already been made. We're talking about usage of them. Okay? How to use them in a way that's respectful and satisfies the needs of the community and I think people, we've talked about that from a scheduling perspective. There is a real need, and how to balance that with the needs. I will just say, I know there's a few more people who want to speak. It is getting late. I am going to hard stop this at some stage because we're not going to be here all night. There have been some very good suggestions around noise. I think Mr. Bassman made one of the best ones on our first comment. I thought it was great around speakers, and we should look into that. I have no idea what an electronic whistle is either. But if it can be less noisy, I'm sure that you coaches might know what it is. Maybe that can be an option. I have no idea. I like the idea of Ms. Riley. She knows the schedules. We could post those for the community. People can know when the things are being used and not. There's a lot more information that we can do to help the community adjust to this, because I get it. It is new, and if I were in the community, I'd want more information too. I don't think that's an unreasonable ask around that. And again, noise is an issue. I get it. People in different parts of town deal with different noise issues. I think your comment around being at the hospital is very valid. We fought those helicopter things for a long time, and now people live there, and helicopters come in. But it doesn't mean that we can't try and figure out ways to lessen the impact, and I think that's imminently reasonable as well. So continue.
2 questions.
Yeah.
Does anybody walk at Tatlock around the track at like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah.
They do. But that's not an issue for anybody that lives down there, right? They don't make any noise. There's no people talking as they walk. That's not a problem?
Sadly, I'm not one of those people who exercise like that.
Well, I guess
I can't answer that from personal experience.
I'm directing my questions towards the residents. It's not a problem for people to walk at Tatlock at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah.
Oh, that's not an issue? So why are having lights on at 9:30 at night? Why is that an issue?
Well, to be fair, I think it's not the people walking. I think it's the fact that there are lights on. That would be, I think that, if I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but that would be what I hear is their concern.
My point is that if that's after normal business hours, or before normal business hours, 11 to 7 quiet time, then why are lights an issue at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night? And my second point is, if you purchased a house next to a high school football field, did you not think that this was going to happen at some point? That we're going to want to expand on the facilities there? It just doesn't make any sense. High school football field, lights. It's a no-brainer. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have 3 people standing. If you want to make a comment, get up now, because I'm going to just, Mr. Bassman, you want to start? You took us out. We'll have you finish, all right? Not right now. You're a third in line. You're going to finish for us tonight, okay?
John Flack, 15 Carlene Court. Is this being recorded?
Yes.
Okay. I might need some police protection. I can't stand lacrosse. Can't stand lacrosse. I've coached every sport in this town: baseball, soccer, football, basketball, not lacrosse. Can't stand lacrosse. I wish there was a reason I could say we don't need these lights. Lacrosse needs these lights. There's no reason. The kids need it. They need the field space for practicing. And it's not about the 30 residents, the 30 households. By the way, some of the, around Butler Parkway, some of them actually do support this. It's about the thousands of kids that are going to be impacted by this, okay? Thousands of kids versus 30 households. I think it's rather selfish that these people are even arguing this. It's about the kids. It's not about me. It's not about this guy. It's not about you guys. It's about the youth of Summit, the future of our country, the future of our town. Very frustrating that they're putting themselves above the children. Okay. It's proven that sports, as you know already, develop kids, teach them valuable lessons. People against the lights, I don't know if they're not informed or if they just like to exaggerate, but you see the signs about the stadium. This isn't a stadium. Have you been to the Somerset Patriots or Yankee Stadium? This isn't a stadium. Some lady's like peeking in people's windows looking at the light ratio in people's houses over by the high school. Like that's a little creepy. I don't know why she's doing that. But they say that the lights will impact bats. The study said that the bats will not be impacted by the lights. They over-exaggerate it to the point where it's just like... Okay. Well, I bought my house in the summer, and I didn't know that Celgene at the time, now Bristol Myers Squibb, was in my backyard. The leaves fell, and then I saw it back there. And my kids grew up with constant noise. The trucks, the backup noise from the trucks beep, the constant humming. My kids turned out okay. It's going to be okay. The kids in New York City grow up with noise. You can buy a sound machine to drown out the noise if that's the main issue. And by the way, in about 5 years, your kids are going to want to play sports, and you're going to be on this side of the argument. You're going to say, man, I wish I was arguing against this 5 years ago, but now my kids are playing sports. I get it. I understand that we need the field space. Question for council here. There are lights. They're asking about lights on let's put them in other parts of town. Well, there are lights in other parts of town. There's lights at Jefferson Field. There's lights at the high school. Have you received any complaints from residents on Ashwood Avenue for the Jefferson Field lights? Have you received any complaints for the homes around the high school field, Edgar Street, Weaver Street, Kent Place Boulevard, Morris Ave? Have you ever received any complaints? These lights?
Yes, they have been at these meetings.
Okay. Well, I know people in those neighborhoods, and they're okay with it.
Now, to be fair, I think there have been some people at the high school who,
Okay. What about by Jefferson Field?
not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, there's plenty of houses there. And it's a cut through road, by the way, too. Is that Ashwood? Nick, is that Ashwood?
All right.
Okay. Anyway, my point is, we're here today to resolve the issue, to come to an agreement to establish guidelines. If it works at Jefferson Field and it works at the high school, why can't we use those same guidelines at Tatlock? Right? Jefferson Field, the baseball lights during the spring when kids are in school have to be off at 9, and over the summer they have to be off at 9:30. Right? It's a summer, they get an extra 30 minutes because people are on vacation or out of town. Why can't we why is this field any different than every other field in town with lights? Is that reasonable? Does anybody have an issue with that?
Jefferson is a baseball field, that's all they do.
But it's only, so what's the issue? Is football?
No, now it's flag football. It's varsity football.
Right. Let's not have a debate.
Well, I
Okay,
think a
good.
reasonable solution here is to look at Jefferson Field and the high school field rules and keep that. Why would Tatlock be any different? Let's just establish those rules and keep them in place. It's one set of rules. You can't have exceptions for one part of town and not the other part of town. I think that's the solution. And by the way, I heard somebody is suing over the lights, which I think is preposterous. Whoever is doing that, like, take your money and give it to charity or give it to the kids. Like, do something more productive with that money.
Stop. Could please? I didn't hear anyone call anyone by name. Okay. So, and it's not respectful to start yelling from the benches either. All right. So let's try and keep it down. We're almost done through this. I think it's been very respectful for the most part. Let's go out on a high note. Okay.
The last thing is the woods by the Historical Society in between Tatlock. If you go in there, there's beer cans in there. If you go in there at night, you hear kids having a great time back there. If I live by Butler Parkway, I would want that area illuminated so that I don't have trouble and problems back in those woods. Go check it out. It's a disgrace. There's garbage back there. There's beer cans back there. Kids, high school kids are back there drinking. Should they be? No. But if that area is lit, your neighborhood would be much safer than it is today. It's a safety issue for the players and the athletes. It's a safety issue for the people in the neighborhood. Let's get the field lit. Let's have reasonable hours. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question real quick. Could we have, since we're on this, also have the high school get the updated lights so that we don't have that issue there?
That's a Board of Ed
Yeah, the Board of Ed
facility,
meets, I
so
think, on
you got to go to
Thursday.
Board of Ed meetings about that. I agree with you, though. They should put some money in the budget to fix those.
I just want to say, how could anybody hate lacrosse? And, you know, my first love in the spring was baseball. And by the time I hit 7th grade, I couldn't hit a fastball anymore. So lacrosse was my refuge. Go ahead.
Good evening. Eric Salcedo, 28 Wade Drive, about 2 blocks away from Tatlock Field. Also grew up in Summit on Huntley Road in East Summit. The New Jersey Transit tracks ran in my backyard, so that used to be really loud back when they used like whatever engines they used back then. I think the concern that me and my fellow neighbors have about lights at Tatlock Field is really the impact on the quality of life of everyone in the neighborhood. Because we know traffic at the corner of Butler and Morris Ave is treacherous for any pedestrian or any student or any driver trying to make a left or right turn onto Morris Avenue. And also, My concern is that we're going to become like this illuminated stadium. You know, has anyone ever been to Lambeau Field? I went for the NFC Championship game against the Giants and the Packers, and you know, that's the one where like Coughlin's face turned all red and it was like freezing cold, negative 80 degrees. And it was the most amazing experience. But then I look around when we're leaving, and we're in the middle of a residential neighborhood. This giant football stadium illuminated in the middle of a residential neighborhood. Now, will Tatlock Field become Lambeau Field? No. But is it going to be something like a Lambeau Field? Is it going to be, are we letting out this light genie that we're not going to be able to put back into the bottle? We need to have, like, let's take regimental steps in implementing the lights. You know, like how many nights are we going to have within a 3-month span of having to deal with traffic and safety? I don't want to compete with Mr. Bassman in selling parking spots in my driveway. Like, we need to think about how we implement lights at Tatlock Field. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right, Henry, you can wrap it up for us, please.
Do you have a permit for that, Henry?
Yeah.
So let me summarize what I think I've heard. 14 games in approximately a 6 or 7 month period is a lot. It's one every other week. Because if you have 3 months in the spring and 3 months in the autumn, that's 6 months, maybe 7 months, 14 games. That's a lot. Second, what people are asking for is just cut back the practice nights by an hour and a half. And then parking. The suggestion that parking be at the high school lot is a good suggestion. And have shuttle buses, just like you have at other stadiums. And that way, people who are handicapped or people who are don't have to walk in the middle of a dark street, it sounds like it's a reasonable thing. But I want to make one final comment. There's been a lot of talk about the benefits of organized sports for children. And I don't question that. Morale, learning sportsmanship, discipline, participating, having something that's uplifting, all those things are true. But there are some other characteristics that young people need to learn. And one of the important things is respect for others. And we can have the sports usage of the field, but we can also demonstrate that the people who use the field may have to make a little bit of a sacrifice out of consideration for others, just as the people who live in the neighborhood, and it's not just 30, it's hundreds, who are making a sacrifice by having the fields lighted in their neighborhood. So there's a mutual sacrifice that should be made. And I don't think cutting back an hour or an hour and a half is a major sacrifice. And if somebody needs to practice that late, we've got other fields. We've got the Glenside fields, which don't have any people around them living. So I think there needs to be more mutuality. We need to recognize that the sports community has needs and the people who live in the neighborhood have needs, and that there should be respect for each side, not one side against the other, but something that meets the needs of both. And that's what I appeal for.
Thank you, Mr. Bassman. All right, I'm going to, no.
Let's say hypothetically, then I'm going to get a
if I'm going to say this, we could go on all night. If you have further questions or comments, all our emails are up on the city website. Please reach out. I want to hear from you. Okay, this is not the end of a dialogue. I'm glad that we had so many people participate. Life is a participation sport. To use a lot of sport analogies tonight. So I'm glad people came out to speak and speak their mind. This was really, really good. Like I said earlier, just a few minutes ago, I think there were some very good suggestions made from the community that we should go back and talk about. So this was really, really good. But I want to be very clear, this is not the end. Be engaged, reach out, talk to us. And, you know, I don't want people to be cynical, to think that it doesn't matter. That when I hear people say that, it depresses me. We spend a lot of time up here trying to do our best for the city, and I hope people understand that we do try and listen. Can't please everybody, but that's not the same thing. Okay, so please reach out. As I said, you have our number, and I want to thank everybody for coming again. So thank you.